Bianca Noir, a rejected pioneer of modern dance at 41, nursed a bitter resentment against the youthful dancers, now celebrated for the innovations she felt she had conceived and perfected. The rejection felt like a phantom limb, like a final, fatal blow, a cold ache where her dancing spirit used to be. Once a pioneer with innovative ideas about bringing raw, emotional dancerism to the stage, she had been dismissed, her style deemed passé. Younger artists, whose ideas she saw as derivative, now commanded the spotlight. This jealousy festered, and her fear that others just wanted her to starve and die, to replace her, erase and cancel her existence, was an internal curse that darkened her days and poisoned her realm. This inner turmoil made her susceptible to an ancient jealous spirit, Isadora Duncan. Bianca's struggle was a dark mirror of the imagined rivalry between Duncan and her own successor, Martha Graham, a ghost of competition fueled by the anxieties of an aging artist facing a new generation's dominance. The specter of Duncan, a dancer whose legacy was a mythic whirlwind of tragedy and beauty, found purchase in Bianca's soul. The rejection felt like a final, fatal blow. Years spent perfecting a unique flowing form of modern dance, a spiritual successor to the rebellion of pioneers like Isadora Duncan, had ended not with a standing ovation, but with the silence of closed doors and forgotten grants. She had poured her life into her art, believing in a vision of pure, uninhibited motion, but the new generation of dancers, with their angular, aggressive forms and viral-ready choreography, had eclipsed her. Bianca's rejection festered into a deep-seated curse of jealousy, the kind that pits a fading master against a rising star. She was being tortured, and was near death. The haunting began on the anniversary of Isadora Duncan's freak and tragic death by a tangled scarf in a convertible. For Bianca, it was nearly another day of watching her career crumble, but as evening fell, an omen appeared, a faint coiling breeze that carried the scent of old perfume and dust. It wrapped around her, pulling at her neck like a phantom scarf. Bianca Noir was a ghost of her former self, a pioneer, a multi-talented artist, whose radical ideas were ultimately rejected, leaving her career to fade into obscurity. A bitter wind had replaced the applause, and her stage was now a solitary life of watching younger, more dynamic dancers find the success she was denied. Her envy of their youth and vibrant potential was a canker in her soul. Bianca's rejection was not a mere inconvenience, it was a profound psychic wound that festered, filling her with a toxic resentment for the new generation, all of whom she saw as lesser than herself.
What you do seems done for the first time. You are able to hold the stage and dance with clarity the deep matters of the heart.
was the anniversary of Isadora Duncan's tragic death. Bianca began her daily routine, haunted by the specter of her own unfulfilled potential. A gust of wind slammed her bedroom window shut, catching the corner of a long silky scarf hanging on a doorknob and pulling it tight against the frame. An unbidden chill ran down her spine as the fabric twisted, momentarily tightening around the neck of her mannequin. The memory of Duncan's demise, strangled by her scarf in a tragic accident, flashed in Bianca's mind. Later, while rehearsing, a long flowing shadow from a street lamp seemed to wrap itself around her, mimicking the strangulation, leaving her breathless and uneasy. Day 2. As Bianca worked on and on without pay, her rejected free-spirited work, the image in the mirror she began to see fogged over. When she wiped it, she saw a fleeting, distorted reflection of a woman with a wild, defiant mane of hair, barefoot and in a flowing dress, the very image of Duncan. The image was gone in an instant. That evening, as Bianca drifted into sleep, she heard a whisper in the dark, a disembodied voice, like rustling gauze, murmuring of forgotten rhythms and stolen dances. Day 3, Bianca's piano, which had been off, suddenly played a melancholic waltz, the very music she was rehearsing to. She fumbled with the power cord, pulling it from the wall, but the music continued, growing louder, accompanied by the faint, insistent tapping of a phantom foot. A cold touch grazed her neck, like the tightening of a scarf, and Bianca, terrified, began to question her sanity. Day 4. On the 4th day, the omens intensified. Bianca's choreographed notes and sketches for her current project began to fade from her mind. The vision, like blood draining from her face, was becoming faint and transparent, as if her history was being erased. The image in the mirror was now marred by a strange, silky blur that obscured her face. Her own artistic legacy was vanishing, just as her body began to feel weightless and transparent, the lines of her own reflection starting to waver. Day 5, Bianca collapsed into the shadowy darkness of the other side, the spirit realm, her body now feeling hollow and heavy at the same time, her limbs numb. Lying in a supine position, her gaze fixed on the ceiling, she watched as the room around her began to melt away into a swirling vortex of pure blackness and darkness. She felt the pull of a dark, unseen force drawing her downward. Day 6, suspended in disbelief, Bianca was now suspended in a void of inky darkness, adrift in an endless starless night. She saw her life and her failures flash before her eyes like distorted images, all tinged with the familiar bitter flavor of jealousy. She felt her body's reality dissolve, and she began to wonder if she herself had finally died. Had her envy and bitterness finally consumed her, trapping her in this silent, lonely perjury? Day 7. The discovery. After an eternity of floating, the swirling purple mists parted. Before her stood the radiant, ethereal spirit of Isadora Duncan, not malevolent, but filled with a profound and tragic sadness. Isadora pointed not at Bianca, but at a flickering, ghostly image of her own demise, the car, the scarf, the fatal snap. The world remembers me for how I died, Isadora's voice echoed in the emptiness, not for how I lived. We were both consumed by our obsessions. As the spectral scene faded, Bianca realized the truth. The ghost was not haunting her to torment her, but to mirror her. It was not Bianca who was dead, but Isadora, and Bianca had been pulled into the spirit realm by her own morbid fascination of those who have financial successes and resources beyond her ability. Bianca's physical form had finally succumbed to the spiritual assault. She had fallen into a trance-like state, her body rigid yet weightless. She found herself suspended in darkness, her limbs in a permanent supine position. Panic gnawed at her as she wondered if she were dead. Days turned into an eternal lightless void, and Bianca floated there, grappling with disbelief, uncertain if she had crossed the threshold, unable to touch anything solid. Her body was a starless galaxy, her mind a churning vortex of fear and disorientation. Had she died? Was this the spirit realm she had unknowingly been pulled into? She thought of Isadora, a kindred spirit in her rebellion against convention, and wondered if this was the fate of all rejected Then a whisper echoed through the darkness. It was a lament, filled with a sorrow so profound it eclipsed her own. The scarf, the axle, it rasped, a spectral, strangled breath. This was the moment of clarity, the turning point where Bianca's fear gave way to understanding. She realized the haunting was not of her death, but of Isadora's. It was Isadora who was trapped, reliving her tragic end, and Bianca, tethered by a shared fate as a rejected artistic visionary, had been brought in as a witness. The haunting wasn't a punishment but a plea. This realization mirrored the complex, often fraught, relationship of modern dance, particularly the rivalry in space and time between Isadora Duncan and Martha Graham, and that of Bianca, and that of a younger, more influential artist who could fascinate her lovers, leaving Bianca in darkness and despair. Graham's success, in a way, eclipsed Isadora's legacy. Resentment now consumed Bianca, at 41, cursing her with jealousy as she watched younger artists achieve the pinnacle success was out of her reach. The story is a gothic meditation on the artist's legacy, the corrosive power of envy, and the ultimate truth that sometimes, the ghosts we chase, are merely reflections of our own unfulfilled desire. Bianca became free, not because a ghost had released her, but because she had confronted her own dark nature, her mortal enemies, the toxic and poisonous energy of their envy of her, and her inability to escape her reality. In that moment, she understood jealousy was not as a personal failure, but a curse we chose. She would no longer be a rejected but a dancer who had faced a ghost, and in doing so, faced her own darkness, her own beast within. The realization was a shock to Bianca's soul, shattering the illusion that she was the target of Isadora's malice. She wasn't dead, she was merely a psychic conduit, a vessel for Isadora's undying envy. The spirit's curse wasn't a punishment but a reflection, showing Bianca the same path of spiritual decay she was on. It was Isadora, like others, living beings who haunt Bianca Noir with their own unfinished business, who was trapped, reliving her tragic end, and Bianca, tethered by taste of the Trabantier's as a rejected artistic visionary, had been brought in as a witness. But a plea. Freed from Isadora's grip, Bianca woke up, gasped, and breathless, the specter gone, replaced by a lingering. Bianca was free, not because a ghost had released her, but because she had confronted her own. In that moment, she understood her jealousy, not as a personal failure, but as a curse she had chosen. Bianca was a thought, yes, but also a person who had faced a ghost.